time. Something has got to happen because we can no longer go down the path that we're going down. This country won't last another 6 months. This country won't last another 12 months if something doesn't happen. So it's time to flip the switch. It's time to get involved. It's time to move the line forward. And if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So I don't care what flip the switch is. I don't care if that means that all of this nonsense is nonsense, or if some of it's true. All right. Good evening and welcome, Warriors, World Patriots, my fellow Americans. My name is Mike. I'm the host of Liberty Warrior. Give me liberty or give me death. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. Welcome to Tuesday, March the 8th, 2022. I don't have my headphones on tonight because we got some videos I think we're going to show you guys, and it feels weird not having my headphones on. I like not being able to hear my voice, and I hear my voice and it's throwing me off. So anyway, good evening, everybody. I hope you are ready for an exciting conversation. We're going to talk about 5G tonight with the Affidavit Mamas, and we also have another special guest that's going to come on with us as well. So just some quick updates. Keep Shane in your prayers. He's still fighting a good fight. So keep him in your prayers. As far as that, there's also another link that I'm going to be dropping tonight. The reason why I'm bringing this up is I know this individual. I've listened to him for quite a while, and he put out quite a few videos today and in the last few days warning us about a lot of things happening with the economy. Um, some things that I think you should just take note of and be aware of and make some preparations. We've been talking about it here for quite a while, and I think if you haven't done it yet, man, this may be your last moment to make sure you got a good water source, extra fuel, um, extra supplies in the pantry. And I'm not saying rush out there in fear and just buy everything on the shelf. I'm telling you right now, it is a wise decision for you to be prepared. And gold is now over $2,000 an ounce, bounced up today. Silver bounced up to 25 something. Um, I don't know. It's kind of going in a direction that I was hoping it wouldn't go, but it's headed in that direction. And I'm going to drop the link to this gentleman's YouTube in the chat tonight. I would encourage you guys to watch the video, subscribe to him, watch the other videos he's put out in the last few hours today, and just take heed. Yes, my faith is in God. It's not in man. And I know God will take care of me. He will take care of you guys, but also God sends us information so that we can wake the hell up and pay attention to what's going on too. So I will be no fool who sits there on my couch and thinks, well, God will just supply everything for me and I don't have to do anything. That's not my belief. My belief is that when God is sending me this type of information, I need to pay attention so that I can take care of my family and my friends. Thank you, Lily J. Appreciate the super chat. But I'm just throwing it out there for you guys. I'm going to drop the link during the show. Pick it up, watch it, do with it what you will. All right, let's bring in the Affidavit Mamas. We got Deborah and Rosemary.
Hello.
How are you young ladies tonight?
We are fine. Let me just talk to
good.
us for 1 second here. He said he's on the YouTube. But
yeah, he's here. He's in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. All right. Yay.
Russ is in the waiting room. I just thought I thought I'd talk to you ladies first and maybe let you guys kind of introduce him a little bit, and then I'll bring him out.
All right. Well, who we're going to be listening to tonight is Dr. Witt. He is an professor at the University of Arizona. He's also a researcher. His area of expertise is imaging, radio waves, and all of that sort of thing. So that makes him an expert in this area of 5G. He contacted us to help him with the Tucson group, Tucson, Arizona group, because they have been trying for 2 years to slow down the city council in their permitting of 5G towers. And the city council is basically saying that they can't do anything, which is not true. So anyway, we went to work on figuring out what needed to be done. And we've created 2 notices so far, one of which the link is ready to give you guys tonight. And so anyway, he's going to hopefully educate. Pardon me?
Oh, I was wondering if you could hear me. Sorry.
Yep, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, absolutely.
Great. Yeah. And so he's here to educate your audience on 5G and the dangers of it, and why we're doing what we're doing with notices and affidavits against the 5G.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Rosemary, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good. Sorry, I just ran all the way home.
Well, I've been having computer problems since after headline hits this morning. I lost a monitor. Things are just, I don't know, they're strange. I had a hard time with the software today downloading. Never had that problem before, you know, and anything can cause it. I'm not saying that there's any kind of stuff out there that's causing it. It's just, I mean, it could be all kinds of different things. It's just frustrating when this is how you make your living, and it seems like it's always giving you problems sometimes, like getting a flat tire on the way to work. It's frustrating. It can be fixed, but I don't like that. I like things to run very smoothly. So if you wonderful ladies are ready for me to bring Russ in, he's in the waiting room.
Absolutely.
All right,
Sure.
let's introduce and welcome
He's
Russ
the star of the show.
to
He
Liberty
is.
Warrior Nation. Welcome to Liberty Warrior Nation, sir. How are you, Russ?
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can
Yeah.
hear you loud and clear.
All right. Great. Thank you for that intro, Deborah. How do you want to proceed from here?
Well, we let Mike handle it. It's his show.
All right.
Well, maybe just start off with giving us a little bit more about your background, and that way people kind of get to know you before we start putting the information out.
Absolutely. So my name is Russell Whitty. I'm a professor at the University of Arizona, but that's probably the last time I'll refer to the university, because I'm really here on my own personal choice to share with you my expertise and what I know. I don't have any idea what the university thinks of any of my slides, but I'm here to give your viewers lots of facts and evidence. And so we kind of simplify the 5G problem down to some things that we can really understand. And then we can all make some decisions on how we want to proceed forward. Now, in terms of my background, I'm actually in medical imaging, which is also known as radiology. I'm in optical sciences, biomedical engineering, surgery, neurosurgery. So I have a combination of the engineering and technical background with the biology and medicine. And I've worked with microwaves as well as ultrasound and light for 20 years, mainly in the field of imaging, which kind of crosses over into other areas, kind of in the areas of medical research as well as some defense research. And then my PhD is actually in neural engineering. So you might hear a little bit about the brain and how that comes into play as well in this presentation.
That'd be good. That'd be great, Russ.
So as soon as you're ready, I'm going to try to share my slides, and hopefully your audience can see that. Is that the plan?
I got it. I got it ready here on my end. If you want to share, go ahead. You can just go to the little share screen at the bottom down there. It looks like a computer screen. Click on that.
Okay.
And it'll say share screen. Okay, there we go.
Do you see my screen now?
Yep. I just got to find my mouse. There it is.
Do you still see a full screen right now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 5G future, embrace or reject.
Perfect. So why don't we get into this? So feel free to jump in. I can't see you right now. I only see my slides. So just go ahead and interrupt me if you want. I'm going to try to give 40-minute overview here, and then hopefully we'll have questions and answers. And I'm going to simplify this down to some things that many of us may not realize, that this whole idea is not really new. What's actually new is the public accepting it. The question is, are we going to accept it? And what do we really know about its history, the whole concept of 5G in the future? All right. So in my state, this is kind of what it looks like, especially the last couple of years. We got beautiful views here in Arizona. I'm in Tucson. And what we've seen most recently are the invasion in our neighborhoods of these poles obstructing our beautiful views. Now, there's much more to the story than this, but I hope this all jumps out at people. This isn't just an Arizona problem, of course. This is happening worldwide. So the real questions we want to ask is, for what purpose? Do we have a choice? And then why should we care? I actually want to lead with the 1934 Federal Telecommunications Law, which created the FCC, which is now regulating the guidelines for all 5G stuff, including the exposure guidelines, et cetera, et cetera. The primary purpose that it was created in 1934 was to promote safety of life and property. And yes, there's been amendments since then, the most recent in 1996. Again, the primary purpose is to promote safety and life of property. So as I go through the slides, I want you to keep that in mind. And so how have we gone astray, and how has the public allowed this to continue almost unfettered? So here's one reason why we may be cautious. Some of your viewers may have heard about these potential microwave attacks on U.S. embassies. The most famous one recently is this U.S. embassy in Havana. We've heard of terms like Havana effect. Many have, including mainstream, attributed this to potentially a microwave type of weapon. But in reality, this isn't the first time. We've had it several times before. And the most famous in history is actually the US Embassy being microwave radiated in Moscow. That started in 1953. It was kept hidden to the public, even though the United States knew for many years. And when it finally was revealed in the 1970s, and Project Pandora is some things that your viewers can look up to get more information on that. The families of the people that were getting sick ended up getting judgments by the US government. And at that time in the 50s and 60s, I believe Henry Kissinger declared it a hazard zone for the workplace, but that was as much as what was revealed until the 1970s. So I want to take one step back to take a different perspective, because once upon a time, smoking was also very good for your health. Being promoted in pregnant women, keeping you slim, living to 100 years old, and your doctors promoting different brands. Some of us may remember that, but there's a long history to the advertising campaign for smoking. And in fact, the science was even settled. Okay, these were facts. This was clear evidence. We were told this. I mean, even the CDC said science was settled. Cigarette smoking does not cause cancer. But in reality, even by the late 1950s, there was plenty of evidence that smoking had problems. However, it would take almost 40 years until this was finally resolved, not through a journal, but through a court system where class action lawsuits and a jury determined that smoking causes cancer or is a causal factor. So the fact is that marketing has a powerful effect on human perception, and many of us may be influenced by the ads ad nauseum sometimes from the telecommunications industry, the devices and infrastructure related to wireless devices. And the real question now is, can we really trust these ads when it comes to reality? And how are we going to be able to separate facts from fiction and truth from propaganda? So first, 5G is actually just industry lingo. It doesn't really mean that much, but I'm going to put a definition to it. It does have a moving target slightly. For the wireless microwave technology, 4G is typically your smartphone. It sometimes is defined as frequencies, microwave frequencies below 3 gigahertz. 5G is basically adding more of the microwave spectrum, which actually goes up to about 300 gigahertz. So we're really talking about the full microwave spectrum. If we get down to 3G, that's your old flip phone, and we can get to other things before that. But the G here stands for generation. So we're talking about 4G and 5G generation technology. These two work in synergy. One is not replacing the other. In fact, 4G is required for 5G. They all work together. And that's also going to be important. But one of the main goals here is really to connect everything to a grid 24/7, as we will see.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, please.
I don't need a long answer, just a yes or no. I heard that there's also a 6G coming out, or already out, or coming soon. Just a yes or no on that one.
Yes, there's even 7G. So as 5G becomes more mainstream and laid out everywhere, and we're not there yet, certainly not even close worldwide, this has to do with coordination of this technology and be able to connect to our things and using software to communicate with feedback and AI. So as these layers get put out, you're basically going to get more and more terms like 6G, sixth generation. It's basically a further advancement of the same stuff, which all involves microwave radiation.
Okay. Thank you.
So one of the promises that we may have heard are these smart cities and the Internet of Things. Okay, smart cities require small, I'm going to use quote small cells because they're actually not as small as we may think. But they really require small cells, according to industry, about every 500 feet across the planet. That's about every 3 homes. Okay. Now, if it's a smart city, you need it across the city. If it's fully engaged as a worldwide phenomenon, it would be across the entire planet. Now, this is about big data monitoring everything and everybody 24/7, and ultimately 5G, as I hope I explain later, is basically going to add harmful pulse microwave radiation to our neighborhoods. And I say that with confidence as we get through my slides, but I'm always welcome to alternative perspectives based on the facts and evidence, of course. Okay, so this other promise is related to the Internet of Bodies, not just connecting everything, but everything about you and your body to a grid. And here's just a patent from someone named Richard Rothschild from 2020, System and Method for Testing for COVID-19. Lots of sophistication here, lots of technology, being able to look at people in the hospital, athletes in the field, in the city, being able to get quantitative information about people and determine whether someone will test positive for a virus, for example, okay? So this is about Internet of Bodies, which already brings into questions about medical privacy and who's watching over that and who's making decisions on that. And why are we not at the table if we're not at the table, okay? Let's go back a second again, because this stuff is not necessarily new. Let's go back to the Technocracy Movement. The most recent one would have been the one that formed in 1920s at Columbia University. It became known as the Technocracy Movement. Patrick Wood talks quite a bit about that, so there's a link down there. Technocracy, the Internet of Things and social engineering was the talk of the town in the United States in the 1930s. And it was this idea that science and technology could solve the world's problems, okay? And it was about connecting everything to a grid. Now there's questions whether they had the technology at that time to do it, but a lot of the philosophy and the ideology was certainly around in the 1930s. Now, Nazi Germany used some of these principles during World War II, and for that reason, we saw this ideology largely rejected by the public. And another thing the public kind of got wind of back at that time, and this is an article from 1947, okay? This is in Popular Science. There was technology there to connect things, lots of things, to a grid using microwave radiation. But even at that time, people understood that living near radar towers may not have been the smartest thing to do. The military for many years by that time understood what microwave sickness was. So again, this idea was rejected, even though it was brought out and discussed. You can see all the devices they talked about connecting. And yes, there was a version of 5G that existed even at that time. So let's go back to the present time. We now have Diapers. This is a brand by Pampers that has wireless technology built in to not only tell the parent when it's time to change the diaper, but anybody else that happens to be listening to the signal. So this is about big data. It could be a boom for the economy for some companies that would take advantage of that. But again, there's questions about privacy. So that brings us now to some of the problems that I want to bring out. I'm going to keep this as simple as possible. The whole goal here is to provide information and content for your viewers. These slides will be available and anybody can share them and research them. Generally, when you see an underlined word in my presentations, you can then click on it and it'll take you to a link for more information. Because one of my goals is to get this information out there and have more discourse and dialogue, and then get a seat at the table so we can decide what is the best technology and how do we keep it protective and make it most useful for the direction that we want to go. So these are the three problems I'm going to be going into in reverse order, actually. Public safety, and I use that term for a reason because there are many laws, federal and state, that refer to public safety. That goes beyond just health, but there's other reasons why we tend to not use the word health, especially when we try to bring changes to our telecom ordinance. But we will be getting into the health effect shortly. Privacy and security is a really, really big problem, okay? Because this technology can intercept data and steal identities. And property values is the most obvious thing because there's been so many studies. People do not want to buy a property with a cell tower out in their front yard or within 100 feet or more of their house. And there's lots of estimates that your property value goes down about 20%. So to me, this is stealing property unless you're being compensated for it in some way. So let's go in reverse order. Property values, yes, plummet near these cell towers. Look at these things. Most of the time, in very rare cases, can the residents themselves stop one of these towers going up. That doesn't mean they can't. There just isn't easy, transparent ways for them to get their foot in the door to say no and to push back. Well, that's something that we've been working on for a while. And we think we're now starting to get some possible solutions, especially what here in Tucson is our first go at it. And there's some of the data. Even the Housing and Urban Development on their website has referred to cell towers as hazards and nuisances. And in states like California, you have to disclose those if they're planning to go up in your property. So this is a problem just when we start talking about property values. All right, let's go to privacy. Okay, it's actually disappearing in our neighborhoods because of these towers going up. Indeed, these microwaves can see through walls. Millimeter wave technology, which is in the microwave band, typically above 30 gigahertz, is the technology that's used in airports by TSA to look through our clothing. Okay, so it's the same concept. And yes, microwaves can see through clothes. It can even see through walls. Okay, and it can track people in real time. Now, what this can lead to is 24/7 surveillance. There's even something called an IMP4G attack where people's identities have been stolen using this type of wireless technology. And people then commit crimes imposed as somebody else by stealing their identity. Okay. And in fact, microwaves can even add noise, as you'll see in a second, audible noise, as well as inaudible, meaning your cells can respond to it even when your sensory system cannot. That's adding quiet enjoyment of our streets and creating a noise factor that you may not want in your neighborhood or near your home. Okay, so let's get to the 5G privacy part a little bit deeper, okay? When you start to control and monitor things 24/7, that can lead to a smart city, yes, as you'll see. But what else does that bring? It brings into this whole idea of social crediting and social engineering. And the Chinese government and the Chinese society has seen this firsthand the last 5 to 10 years, where we started to see the first real smart cities emerge, with Wuhan being, if not the first, one of the first cities. So let's take a look at what a smart city in China looks like. And keep in mind, big tech helped write the software for the 5G world that we're seeing now in China rolled out for a few years. So here, I'm going to play a short clip. This is about a minute and a half to give your viewers just an idea. Let me increase my volume 1 second. Get this up here. All right. I still shared. Okay. Still see my slides, right? Or did I stop sharing?
Nope,
No, you're fine.
All right. So let me play that.
Constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now the Chinese are also ranked.
红色是表示你的专注力显示的很高，
Teachers at this primary school in China
蓝色是走神了，
know exactly when someone isn't paying attention.
白色就是你可能跟网络还没有连接好。
These headbands measure each student's level of concentration. The information is then directly sent to the teacher's computer and to parents.
What the hell?
That's right.
就是自己的脑子搞清楚，我感觉这里有个硬的。
This fifth grader, whom we caught dozing off in class, told us his parents punish him for low attention scores. China has big plans to become a global leader in artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
It has enabled a cashless economy where people make purchases with their faces. A giant network of surveillance cameras with facial recognition helps police monitor citizens. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes. Experts and citizens alike are sounding alarms about various aspects of the country's huge push into artificial intelligence. These classrooms are laboratories for future generations.
All right. Let me make sure that's all. All right. Now, one more, because I think this is rivaling the problems with the health effects I'm going to get into. This privacy issue may be just or even more important, to be honest. So I really
Can I pause you for just a second,
yes,
Russ?
Yes.
I just want to say something to the audience right now that's listening and watching. Hey, if you guys got questions, save your questions until after Russ is done with his presentation. And what I'll do is, if Russ is okay with it, we'll take a handful of callers, and then toward the end, we'll just do a speed round of asking questions and seeing how quick he can answer them to try to get through as many questions as we possibly can. Because I have a feeling chat's going to blow up with all kinds of questions. So just save him till after he's done.
And Russ will come back if he needs to. He said he would.
Oh, I'd absolutely love to have him back.
Yeah, I'm trying to give your money's worth here since I'm not being paid for this at all. I'm going to give you everything I can here. Okay. All right. So I really want to make this compatible for no matter where you are in the audience. If you got a background in this, I'm hoping I'm giving you something new. If you don't know anything about this, I'm hoping to get you up to speed very quickly. So one other part of this is that I want to get to is the social crediting. You've heard a little bit how it's in schools. But what about how it's affecting people's lives here?
How she behaves is tracked and scored to show how responsible and trustworthy she is. It's called the social credit system, and in one version now being tested, a person's reputation is scored on a scale of 350 to 950.
Oh, Lord help us.
And how you, with a good score of 752, is okay with it. In fact, most people are.
It's a mechanism like pushes you to become a better citizen.
It's big data meets Big Brother, expanding how the government monitors, understands, and ultimately controls its 1.4 billion citizens. Thanks to advances in artificial intelligence and facial recognition, and a web of more than 200 million surveillance cameras.
Are people bothered by privacy concerns?
We think the lot of camera keep the safety is really good. We can accept it.
Companies are experimenting with the algorithms to help the government create the new national social credit system. The government also has pilot projects. In one, citizens are required to do hours of unpaid work to get benefits. And scores are docked for things like littering, a messy yard, gossip, even jaywalking. Video of offenders is shown on the news. And information collectors like Joe Aini are paid to report on their neighbors. Her quota, 10 entries a month. Like the man who carried a drunk person home. A good deed, she says. Good social credit gets rewarded with perks like cheap loans and travel deals. But a bad score means public shame and worse. Huang Huijun lost a court case and didn't pay. Now he's on a government blacklist. I can't buy airplane or train tickets, he says, and the list goes on. Being discredited makes it hard to get a job or put kids in top schools. The social credit system will go nationwide next year, and few here are willing to criticize it. Something that may pose a risk itself for a bad score and the life that comes with it.
All right, so that was 5 years ago. Okay, so if you didn't think this is important, I hope you do now, because now's the time to kind of step up and get involved and start pushing back if you decide you don't want this kind of world. I guess that's always an option, right?
Yep.
All right.
I live at the base of the mountains. If this stuff comes to my town, I'm packing a bag. I'm heading to the toppest peak, and I'm gonna go Jeremiah Johnson full on. I'm out.
Well, it's slowly creeping in a lot of cities around the country. A lot of people are dealing with this problem. So now let's get a little bit closer to the cell towers specifically, which are really microwave factories. And if they were sold that way, I guess a lot of people might be thinking differently. But that's all they are, microwave factories. They're transmitting things that you may not necessarily be able to sense, although you actually can. It's invisible microwave pollution and noise, okay? There are meters out here. I got one right here, if you can see my video. This is over near my mom's house. But these towers, unlike the devices you use, which are also using microwave radiation, so this meter, by the way, will convert the microwaves into something you can very easily hear. And that's what you're hearing from a 5G tower. It is 24/7. This is involuntary exposure. You cannot turn it off, unlike your phone or your laptop or your Bluetooth. These are also using microwave technologies. And by the way, I'm not always going to distinguish 4G from 5G. The things I'm going to talk about now when it comes to health are within the microwave band. This is all relevant when it comes to health. And except for very rare situations, am I going to distinguish 4G for 5G? That'll be a different conversation. But if it's microwave radiation, this is going to be a relevant next few slides. All right, so can you spot the 5G antennas in your neighborhood? Here's a few versions, okay? Different frequencies, different sizes. The higher the frequency, the smaller the antennas. But are you sure you can spot all of them? There are even stealth antennas that can be camouflaged in trees and buildings, etc., depending on your local laws. The one on the right is more common in Europe, right under the pothole there, even under benches and parks and things like that. So when we think we know we can spot them, don't always be so sure. All right. So let's start to look at just a broader view of what we know from before from these macro towers. Many studies have been done like this, symptoms versus the distance from a 4G cell tower. And this is just looking at 16 different symptoms, from fatigue to nausea to headaches. And you see this pattern as you live closer and closer to these towers, you tend to see more and more of these symptoms. I'm just giving you an example. You can
hold on a second.
Yes.
Here, Ray.
Yes.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Can we? I'm having a hard time reading it. Can you read those 16 things? And the reason why I'm asking is because okay. Yeah. The reason why I'm asking is because somebody I'm close to started going through some sickness the last 2 weeks, and they just put smart meters on the houses around in the neighborhood. And I know smart meters also have a lot to do with this 5G nonsense as well.
Yep.
And she can't figure out why all of a sudden she's starting to, I mean, she's been sick before, but this just come out of the blue yet again. And everything she's tried doing is not stopping it. And I'm seeing some of the symptoms on your list there. So if you could just read through them real quick. And I realize I'm not a, what do you call one of those people that gets sick on every little thing they hear?
Hypochondriac.
I'm not a hypochondriac, and nor is she. I just find it very coincidental that some of these symptoms are on your list, and they just went through and started putting these smart meters on the houses just 2 weeks ago is when she started getting sick.
So absolutely. So smart meter is part in the same category as the Wi-Fi routers. They send out very specific kinds of signals, depends on the company, but typically there are strong pulses every 20 seconds, 24/7. And absolutely, as I get through my slides, it will be fairly obvious that any of these devices, especially if you're close to them, can produce almost any type of effect that you can imagine. Why am I saying that? Because the effects of microwave radiation on the body is the most studied environmental factor ever. Okay, there's over 25,000 peer-reviewed and government studies. So I'm going to read those 16 that are listed here, but we'll go into quite a bit more detail on this. Now, It doesn't mean that her symptoms are caused by the smart meter. However, if that's something new in her life and she's being exposed to that, it absolutely can be a primary factor that's creating those things. So you've got to do some little things, go away for a while, check exposure levels, go to the other side of the house, et cetera, because there are other things, of course, that could create these symptoms. So we're not going to do cause and effect. We have to be a little bit careful. You got to go a little bit beyond that. But of course, smart meters and our devices can cause all kinds of myriad of problems. So I'm just going to read these. So for your viewers, fatigue, sleep disturbance, headaches, feeling of discomfort, difficulty concentrating, depression, memory loss, visual disruptions, irritability, hearing disruptions, skin problems, cardiovascular, dizziness, loss of appetite, movement difficulties, and nausea. Okay. I want to just preface this to say when the first radar towers started to really go up in the early 1930s, these were felt by our military and the people around them almost immediately. Okay, this was known as microwave sickness by the 1930s. They may not have understood as much as we do now, but these things were well described back then. And the exposures from a radar transmitter, especially if you're not right underneath it, will be very similar to the things that we use every day. Okay. And I'm taking a bird's eye view. I'm trying to give you an idea of the volume. And again, when I share these slides, people can go and do their own research. I'm not necessarily going into too much detail here, but there are many epidemiologic studies in many countries repeated over and over again, looking at the health problems as you get closer to mobile phone base stations and other types of microwave transmitters. Epidemiologic studies like the previous one and this one are in a certain category where you're not necessarily controlling all the factors. You're trying to look at a large population and kind of sift things out to see if there's an effect. I'm going to be focusing on more of the causal experiments where they actually try to control these factors as much as they can to show that it is the microwave that are doing these things. That's what's going to come next.
Russ, do you have a problem? I've got the email link to this. Do you have a problem with me dropping the link to your slideshow in chat?
Yeah, I mean, I'll share the PDF version, which has everything. But absolutely, my goal is to share this with as many people as possible so they can also use it and to their benefit and share with others, okay? Now, I do want to distinguish a macro tower, 4G, that we've had since really the 90s, okay, from a 5G tower. They're called these cute little small cells, but when you actually do the math and you take measurements, these are actually measurements that were taken in the Bay Area, comparing a macro tower that is a half a mile away, 200 feet high, measured from a second-story bedroom. Those are just units here of exposure, compared to a 35-foot small tower, 60 feet away from that same bedroom window in the Bay Area. You're seeing 25 million times more exposure because of the close proximity of these small cells and the amount of power they're being allowed to transmit, which in my opinion is unnecessary, because this is, as you're going to see, way more than what is required, and that is providing 5 bars on a cell phone. That is the primary regulations that the industry standards have been told they need to follow. Provide excellent reception, which is 5 bars on a cell phone. But they want more than that. They want to connect everything to everybody 24/7. That requires bandwidth, more frequencies, and more power. So they're getting away with it by being able to put these things up with very little local regulation. As you're going to see, it really should start with the local people pushing back and saying, hey, you can't do that. But that's not really happening most places, okay? So just so we all know what microwave radiation is, it's a band of the spectrum here. Some of us might be familiar with X-ray, gamma rays. People use the term ionizing because it kicks electrons out of orbit, and that can cause free radicals and damage. Microwaves, although do not work in the same way on the body as X-rays and gamma rays, they can create similar types of effects, but with different mechanisms. And so I'm outlining 3 things I want everyone to remember. First, microwave radiation on the Earth was almost entirely man-made before World War I, certainly, except for a thunderstorm, because the ionosphere protects microwave from getting through. So it was very, very low exposures, and there's many references that can look into that. So we call this xenobiotic radiation, foreign to life. It's also pulse modulated, which even causes more problems because it's not just continuous. But the other things I want you to remember is that water molecules, most of us are water, are highly absorbing of microwaves. That's why the microwave oven works so well. but your biological tissue is also very strongly absorbing. And that the microwave absorption, from what we know now, changes the structure and size at the molecular level, not the atomic level necessarily, but molecular. So let's look a little bit deeper again. Before I talk about health, let's talk about a couple of physical effects. We actually use something in my lab called Thermoacoustic Imaging, which uses pulse microwaves to create sound, which we then detect, which we can make an image. That's called a thermoacoustic image, and you can make three-dimensional images using this principle. However, what we've known for 70 years is that you can hear pulsed microwaves, especially in a quiet environment. This was first characterized very well by Dr. Frey, or Fry. I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways. And he went on these great debates in the 60s. There's a book in the 1980s talking about the great microwave debate. These things were vetted out in public. People understood that microwaves were really not safe. But we didn't have towers everywhere to be thinking about. We just had some radar transmitters. Anyway, so here's an effect. Now, the CIA often refers to this technology as voice to skull. There are many patents on this, of how you encode microwaves to actually create a voice inside the head just using microwaves. The NSA typically refers to synthetic telepathy, a similar idea. Again, this goes back many decades, but if you want to search for more, including patents on this, those are the terms that you want to use. And to take it one step further, we had Jose Delgado, former professor of physiology and neuroscience at Yale University in the 1980s. This is a great meant for the public, an Omni magazine called The Minefields. I recommend anyone, if you can find it, read that. It's all about how microwaves can be used to affect behavior, and there were ethical questions and whether this was a good idea. And Jose Delgado also wrote a book called Physical Control of the Mind. Okay, so we can go into a lot of deep in that. I'm not going to go any further in that direction. But microwaves, including low-level subthermal, we're not talking about heating anything here, can affect the mind, the brain, the body, and your cells in a lot of different ways. And I just want to lay out that when we talk about electromagnetic radiation, there are a lot of properties that we can talk about, but those three in green seem to have the greatest effect on biological living systems. The intensity, which many of us are familiar about how strong it is, the pulsations can create different effects, and the modulation information can create different effects, okay? But all of those can actually affect biological systems. So it can actually affect systems on all scales, from the molecular DNA all the way up to the organism. Huge database to choose from here, peer-reviewed in government studies, as I mentioned before. And that cells, as I mentioned, most sensitive to the intensity, pulsing, and the dose dependency. Now, I do want to add, when we talk about guidelines, the FCC, Federal Communication Commission, and even the FDA, they really only recognize intensity as having a meaningful biological effect. So safety standards by the FDA look at intensity and say, if you're below that, you're fine. It doesn't look at the pulsing. It doesn't say if you're exposed to that for 24/7 for the next 5 years, as long as the intensity is below a certain level. Our regulation agencies are just simply saying it's safe, contrary to 20,000 peer-reviewed publications and government studies. Okay, I'm not going to talk much here about animals, plants, and insects, but I do give you some links if you want to go into that. Many, many studies in this area as well, as you might imagine. But we're going to focus more on people. I do want to remind people, as I'm going into some of these effects, is that children are most vulnerable to microwave radiation, primarily because they have thinner skulls and bones than adults. And that means their absorption in their brain is on the order of 3 times more. You can see how it's penetrating through the skull, and into their bone marrow 10 times more. Okay. So how do microwaves affect living systems beyond heating? Well, it deforms molecules like DNA, produces inaudible noise, it disrupts biocommunications. Your cells in your body and organs all communicate through electrical signals. Now, I have other presentations where I don't talk about all these negative things. I believe the future of medicine is around electromedicine, vibrational therapies, and things like that. because there are ways to use electricity in ways that actually can promote health and actually be healing. However, that's typically not in the microwave band. Microwaves can even be used to release hormones, for example, into the blood, like insulin and cortisol. It can suppress the immune system, and even very, very minute levels can affect your normal brain signaling, your EEG, your electroencephalographic signal, okay, and affect behavior. These are just some of my favorite studies. Again, I'll have a link to this, but I do want to highlight these. Why? These studies go back quite a long time, but look who's writing these and funding these studies. I am listing here 21 studies. Army, Navy, Air Force, NASA, CIA, EPA, number 10 there, one of my favorites, 1984. They lay it all out, 300 pages. DOD, Ford Foundation, WHO, NIH, the largest institute in Italy, the Ramazzini Institute, toxic. So again, this is not new. It's not controversial. It's not, well, we need more studies. We need to just look at what's already there and then start making decisions based on that. If you want to just go to one study, how about the 1972 one by the Navy that reviewed over 2,300 papers? I'm not going to list all the things, but brain, heart, reproductive, muscular, respiratory, eyes, it's all laid out of what microwaves can do to the body. Okay. The WHO knew this. They hosted a conference in 1973 in Warsaw, Poland. Their conclusion of the 3-day conference, and you can download this 300-page document where they go through all the studies. The conclusions were very clear. It wasn't a question whether microwave radiation is harmful to the human body. The question is, how did it work? And they looked very carefully at mechanisms. And in the conclusions, they described many different types of mechanisms that the greatest scientists at that time were discovering. And here I'm just showing one section B of the conclusion, how microwaves change the shape and size of molecules. And when you change the structure of a molecule, you can also change the function. And the one that many of us might be familiar with is related to sickle cell anemia. If your blood cell changes shape through, in this case, a genetic abnormality, your blood no longer delivers oxygen properly to the tissue. Okay, but this is what microwave does, not only to you and me, but also your food when you're cooking it. It changes the molecular form. Okay, I'm going to pick it up a little bit because my idea was really to give you volume, but I do want to overwhelm you with some of the science. So there's no ambiguity in terms of what's out there. Ford Foundation, 1965, 100 pages, just looking at the central nervous system effects of microwave radiation. Downloadable, you can find that online. The Air Force, 1988, declassified in 1994. Here I'm just highlighting the cancer-causing effects, chromosomal damage, mutagenic effects. These are all within range of what would be guidelines now of our exposures, which have increased many, many orders of magnitude over the last 30 years, okay? So I'm not talking about exposures that are way off the wall. We're talking about consistent with the type of exposures that we would see in our daily lives today, depending on our background radiation. Of course, the closer you get, the more likely you may see some of these symptoms. Just to show I'm not going to be cherry-picking studies, let's just look at the largest telecom industry funded study. They went to, this comes about because in 1993, we had somebody went on Larry King with a neurosurgeon saying there were some very unusual brain tumors and the way that it grew from the outside to the inside. And this was the talk of the town. And so the telecom industry got together and said, we need to sponsor our own studies to kind of dispel this idea that cell phones are not safe. And so they brought in Dr. George Carlo, MD, who was a pretty well-known public health expert, epidemiologist, and he led the largest study funded, $30 million, 1993 to 1999, under the condition that whatever they found during that period, there would be no changes in the government regulations during the study. Okay, so while it was going on, that was the agreement. Now, I'll let you read, you can find this book. I'm showing a quote from that. You can find a lot of material online, but it was basically devastating to the industry. They basically stopped everything in 1999. And then the beat went on, and Dr. Carlo didn't have any predisposition at that time. In fact, he was told there were all these studies that were safe, but through his his studies with independent researchers around the world found a very different point of view. The largest study by NIH, okay, this was, again, $30 million, 10 years in mice and rats, recently published 2019 and 2020. It actually started in 1999. Multiple places, independently controlled studies. Okay, here are the conclusions. You can read these online. Clear evidence of an association of 9 different types of cancer: brain, heart, and prostate, especially cardiac myopathy, and genotoxicity. These have all now been peer-reviewed and published from those studies, okay? National Toxicology Program is the gold standard. But even in the European Commission had the same result in 2004. Again, cell phone radiation can cause DNA damage. And this has been repeated many, many times. I'm just showing you the largest, you would think would be most reputable studies. And this one called the Reflex study from the European Commission. Couple of things on the brain. So I can I want to get here. I really want to finish in the last 5 minutes. So I don't want to hang up too much, but the brain is a really special organ, and it appears to be really sensitive to microwave radiation. So there are many, many papers on this that you can document, you can look at, you can read, and you can learn from. I'm just kind of giving you the pattern that this even cell phone, microwave, smart meter, whatever you want to call it, this is all different pulse modulated microwave radiation, and it can and will cause these effects because it's been studied for so many years in so many different ways. Okay, it basically can create a leaky brain where things that normally do not get into your brain because you have a protective barrier now get into the brain. That's called opening the blood-brain barrier. Okay, and what we've seen since 1989 is unprecedented neurologic death rates, and many papers suggesting that this exponential increase in exposures may be partly responsible, at least. Okay, so I'm just kind of flashing these up there. Yes, here are review articles on the association with microradiation and early onset Alzheimer's disease. Is that going to be surprising based on everything else I've just presented? We need to look at this more carefully and have more discourse about this. And the other thing I'll note with Alzheimer's patients is they tend to have higher content of aluminum in their brain. And when you have nanoparticles and heavy metals, you're going to be more sensitive to microwaves as well. So there could be multiple factors here going on. Oxidative stress. This is a whole review article on the reproductive system. You'll have access. You can follow up on those. Did you know that microwave exposure weakens the immune system? You probably wanted to know that the last couple of years, but I bet nobody really told you that. But yeah, limiting your exposure to microwaves can definitely boost your immune system, as this review article from Berkeley in 2020 lays out pretty clearly. Now, why does too much power? What are the consequences of too much power? So I mentioned 5 bars in a cell phone. That is really what is supposed to be regulated. Excellent reception on your cell phone. And as you increase exposures from that line and go down on the list, and you get to the bottom line, which is actually guidelines by the FCC, okay, you start to see many, many more health effects. So there really what we want to do first immediately is control that exposures that most people are not even watching or monitoring. We don't even really know what's coming out of our exposures because the cities are not looking at it. The FCC is not really looking at it. And for most cities, we don't really even know what's going on, but we do know it's far more than just 5 bars in a cell phone, okay? Other countries have already caught wind of this for many years. I'm listing a few of them, which are, in this case, restricting Wi-Fi in schools, because France has been doing this for many years. Middle schools or less, you don't really get Wi-Fi there because they understand this. Even China has banned smartphones as of a year ago. You can see their statement there. All right, blood. I'm going to kind of go through these because I do want to kind of end up here. I haven't talked specifically so much about specific frequencies, but 60 gigahertz gets into the millimeter wave. There is a technology over the air radar that uses 60 gigahertz. These goes on homes, rooftops, which then can be transmitters for their neighborhood. We're starting to see these in Arizona a little bit. I don't know about in your community. But 60 gigahertz for a long time has been very well known to be a window where oxygen is a very strong absorber, okay? And there's papers suggesting that if you use 60 gigahertz, it can actually disrupt blood oxygen transfer to tissue, because oxygen may not be able to be held in your blood cells as long as it should be and be able to be released as it properly should. So I'm just putting that up there for more discussion in terms of that specific frequency. Diabetes, hormone release, Magda Havis has done quite a bit of work looking at blood levels. This is a way that some people, there's technologies out there now, you could look at your blood, monitor insulin, for example, blood sugar levels if you're diabetic, and other things, and actually see almost real-time effects of your exposure using some of these techniques. I'm just throwing up that one up there for now. Now, 4G, 5G, no matter what it is, we still have some voluntary control of how much exposure we're getting, because most of us today are still getting most of our exposures at home from our Wi-Fi routers, Bluetooth, sticking wireless things in our ears, AirPods, whatever you want to call them. This is really the type of exposures that we really want to start thinking about, as well as the cordless DAC phones in your house. Those are 24/7 microwave transmitters. So if you have one of these smart meters, or I'm sorry, one of these meters, portable meters, you will be able to see that those are actually very strong transmitters in your home. So these are all just tips that people can use for now, controlling your voluntary exposures to the devices that you have. Some books I recommend, okay? Assortment here. We're talking about orthopedic surgeons. We're talking about retired military experts across the board that have been talking about this decade after decade after decade. The question is, who is listening? Finally, we get to the stuff towards solutions, okay? What is our responsibility? We have to get informed. We have to get engaged right now, okay? The answers, in my opinion, the fastest solutions are engaging with our local elected reps. If they're not going to listen to us, then we got to deal with that too. Okay, we need to be able to weigh the benefits, dangers, and alternatives to any new product. And yes, 5G is a suite of products. We need to hunt for reliable sources. I've done my best to give you peer-reviewed as starting points. Look for facts and information. Demand rigorous scientific discourse and public debate. I'm trying to promote this here in Tucson, at the university, in the local community. We need platforms where we get information out there, where there are both sides. There's no politics involved. We get the information, facts, and then we need to have a seat at the table. We need to be involved in amending our local telecom ordinance to protect safety, privacy, and property, okay? Yes, there are alternative technologies out there. Chattanooga, Tennessee embraced fiber to the premises technology. This is bringing the fiber all the way to the business or residents and letting them how to decide they want to distribute it, instead of breaking it at the curb and putting up a huge tower that's transmitting the microwave radiation. And they just did a study last year, $3 billion boom to their economy, because they made this decision over 10 years ago. Other cities in Colorado, for example, are looking at modeling this, okay? But we got to have the seat at the table, okay? I think there might even be other technologies. Nikola Tesla is one of my heroes. He was using technology in 1915 that did not use microwave radiation. So I'm just putting that out there. Others can go look that up if they're interested. I'm going to skip that one, but I want to just reemphasize this, okay? We, the city, cannot get liability insurance to cover damage or injury due to microwave radiation. Why? Because even the insurance companies have exclusion clauses, like Lloyd's of London. In this case, there's known as exclusion 32, directly or indirectly arising out of, resulting from, or contributed to by electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetism, radio waves, or noise. Those are exclusions. You cannot get reimbursement. That means your city is not protected, or anybody else. Do you see a problem in that? All right, so finally, the last set, which brings into our affidavit mamas here and other experts that have been helping us, your local telecom ordinance must align with core values, and we have to remind our public servants of their oath of office, which in Arizona is extremely strong. They pledge allegiance to the Constitution of Arizona and, of course, the US Constitution. And we have to demand disclosure of all conflicts of interest because money is flying around in all different directions. No one can keep track of it. And we need to try to find that one or more local or reps who will advocate for you. We haven't found that in Tucson. It's pretty much strike out. We've tried a couple years. And then finally, if nothing else works, you got to resort to notices and affidavits directly to those responsible for inflicting harm so they stop their behavior and start getting us on a path that's safe, secure, prosperous, etc. Okay, this is my last slide, and I'll leave it up and I'm going to stop sharing. But I do want to point out that Tucson, we now very recently have an example of a notice of maladministration, which is misspelled, sorry, and malfeasance for Tucson that was just posted that people can sign to send to our local city council and mayor saying, hey, you aren't following the Constitution along with a lot of other things to protect us, and this behavior needs to stop. And so this is the first process. So I think the other people you have on with Rose and Deborah know much more about this, but we now have a document for the first time that is a template for Tucson that we think will work for other cities in Arizona and other states that have been working with us and are looking at this as a solution. So I think this is a great segue for me to stop sharing and take questions, and let's have a conversation. Let me see where I am on that. Do you see me now?
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
We're fine. Okay, Mike, what you want to do?
I quit drinking. I quit drinking a while back. I think I'm ready for a beer. I really think I'm ready for a beer. I got a headache, to be honest with you. That was a whole lot of information. Thank you, Russ, for being here tonight, sharing that. I think a lot of people in chat have a lot of questions. Affidavit Mamas, I think I'll just turn the floor over to you and let you guys kind of tell everybody what you're getting involved in, and then if we can make that quick, we'll take maybe a couple of phone calls and then open chat up for questions, and we'll try to do a rapid fire and answer as many of them as we can.
So Russ contacted the Affidavit Mamas in January and asking for help with notices and affidavits because he had become aware of David Jose and his method of doing things. And so this was a huge learning curve for us because I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about this. Russ was kind enough to supply me with a massive amount of information, and I started reading, and we have formulated the first notice, which is based on Arizona Constitution and Arizona state statute, which says clearly that the communities can do things to prevent or at least limit the implementation of this 5G technology within the communities if they choose to do so. And
Okay.
And so they're choosing not to do so because they're being lazy, and we're quite positive they're getting paid. So we've got our first notice ready. We've got actually the second notice just about ready. With Sunday night will be the last night of talking about that, and we'll be ready with the second notice, and then we'll go on to affidavits and probably more notices after that.
Okay, Rosemary.
Doing this project has, I mean, I knew a little bit about stuff, but it's really brought to the forefront how much we don't know and how much has been kept from us. And Russ and his group have been incredible with getting us into a place where we can better understand it. But my plea is that this goes out far and wide and everybody gets on board with this, and that we can do something to put a stop to the higher frequencies. And as Russ described it to us, that they can cap it. We still get the necessary amount that we need, but not having the extra amounts that make people so sick or go to the fiber optic way and go underground where it's not going to hurt the people. And that's really what we're fighting for.
Okay, that's great, and it's eye opening. I knew of a little bit of this when you guys said that you wanted to bring Russ on. I knew a little bit of it, not as in detail as what Russ laid out here. And for everybody who's still watching tonight, if you guys could share this video out, I think it could really open the eyes for a lot of people and help Affidavit Mamas in their cause, and we can get more people on board with what Russ is asking for the Affidavit Mamas help for. We need an army. We need people to stand up and fill out these affidavits and to really push back on this, because you're correct. The 5G has never been good. I know quite a few people who get sick around it. I'm not so I'm sure that there's a few other people that I know that might be getting sick from it as well. And the fiber optics, I got a background in fiber optics a little bit, and they're starting to bring that to my little town here. And I would much rather see the fiber optics than a bunch of towers all over the place. It's
Right.
Rage in the Cage. He is affected by 5G. Remote is affected by 5G. So maybe the next time we have you on, Russ, maybe we'll see if Rage in the Cage wants to join us, or couple of those guys that are actually affected by it and know they're affected by it. Rage gets headaches so bad just going into the city. He tries to live as far outside the city as he possibly can. So there is a lot of stuff that we need to be aware of. And I agree with Rosemary, where we just don't know. And we're just now starting to wake up.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a huge wake-up call for me, and I know that our skills with e-notices and affidavits are helping them, but they are definitely helping me see a need to get this out into the world.
Absolutely. I'm going to drop the link real quick. We'll take 2 or 3 callers, and then we'll go to the chat. So if you guys want to call in, if you guys got a comment or a question for Russ, we'll try to make that happen. Take 2 or 3 callers. We're running on about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 8 minutes. So we got a little bit of time here. If you guys got time to stay with us here. Fiber sure does clean. Yeah. Oh, Travis.
Said
So yeah,
fiber
if you guys
should
want to
clean
call
you
in,
out.
yeah, fiber cleans you out. I know John E. I seen John E. in the chat. I'm sure he's got a question or a comment he'd like to make. But there's the link, folks. I'll take 2 or 3 callers, and then we'll go to the chat. Anything else you'd like to put out there, Russ?
Well, I think I'm here because it's difficult to get a platform to get this information out, and I think everything revolves around our communications, right? Social media, our devices, our texting, and it's all using a microwave radiation that very few of us understand has been so well studied. And I think the other thing is that even in the community, there are many scientists, not as many experts as there was, say, 50 years ago. In fact, all these organizations and regulation agencies have been defunded. They took away all the experts. And so, but the ones that are out there, you will still see, we need to do more studies, or even though, this kind of stuff, in my opinion, needs to stop. We need to recognize that is beyond overwhelming. And then we need to be out in the public stage confronting anybody that believes otherwise. So it's all about public discourse. And to me, it's not just the 5G. We can come up with other topics, but where are the public debates? Where are the platforms where people are coming on both sides and having real discourse and debate without the logical fallacies, right? Ad hominem attacks. They don't work in debates. I'm giving examples, right? So that's kind of my feeling overall on this.
Well, you can take this a step further with a couple other side notes as well, where these mandates, these vacations that they're forcing people to take, and the vacations that a lot of people have already took, with the nanoparticles in it and stuff. How does that work with 5G and 6G and 7G? I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there that talk about that talk about mind control, and you're talking about social credit scores. There's some things out there now where they're talking about this type of radiation can, like you said, that it can tell somebody sitting in an office everything they need to know about you before you even walk in. Your medical history, your social credit, your finances, all that stuff. So, I mean, this really leads into a direction that I don't want to go or see. And we've got our first caller. We got our sweet Nancy tonight. I'm going to go ahead and bring her in and let her ask her question. How's it going, Nancy?
Hey, how's everybody going? Thank you, everybody.
Good.
It's very good that you're all involved. It's just wonderful. And I know ever since everybody started bringing your attention to the towers, you start noticing them. And I was watching somebody, I believe it was, I can't remember, but they were talking that they put these towers on top of schools. And I think that is so wrong, right in the bleachers where people sit to watch games and stuff. And yeah, I mean, just under electrical wires that are way up in the sky, you can hear them buzz.
Yeah.
I can imagine things that are that powerful. I mean, they look like refrigerators up there on those towers. Horrible. So,
Yep.
but keep up the good work. You guys are doing great. I love watching
Thank you.
Thank you. And you mentioned the size of refrigerators because that's exactly what the size are. But do you know what, and people have studied this now, do you know what size is really needed to provide 5 bars on a cell phone for a quarter, half a mile, something like that? Your Wi-Fi router in your house, that's what's needed. The size of that thing is all that's needed. Okay. In fact, some people have been proposing that in the ordinances. Make it that size and you'll get your 5. So I think size is important here, and to think about why is it a refrigerator when all we really need is a Wi-Fi router.
Yeah. In 2018, I was out in New Mexico with my dad was out there in Las Cruces, and they have theirs. They're so funny. It is just hilarious. But their towers, they have them decorated where they're trying to make them look like a pine tree, and they are just hilarious.
They have them in California too.
Crazy. Well,
Yeah, we have them shaped like cactus out here.
Oh, cactus? Oh, that
Yeah.
is. Oh, wow, fun. What do they? They think that we don't have anything upstairs? Yeah.
Well, that would be part of the thinking, that they can control us.
Well, I've never been able to be controlled. So I am the control. I have all the animals. I control all the animals. So consider having fun tonight.
All right. Guys, well, thanks for calling in, Nancy.
Thank you.
God bless. All right, Nancy, she's called in a few times. She's just the sweetest that you could ever meet there. And, I think a lot of people are concerned about the information that we're showing tonight. And I don't think people should live in fear. I think they should just be concerned about it, and they should do their own research and figure this stuff out, and then join people like the Affidavit Mamas and like you, Russ, that are out there trying to make a difference and get these changes made. If fiber optics is the better way to go, then that's what these communities should be pushing for, and to get rid of these towers. I'll give you a prime example. As an electrician, I did a job for Larry Miller. I built a huge car lot, and they wanted to be able to get Wi-Fi across the entire lot, and it was a big lot. So a lot of these little Wi-Fi boxes they put all around the building, and like you showed, Russ, on some of the power poles and parking lot lights, parking lot poles and stuff. There was these little boxes to try to get that network across there. So no matter where a customer was or where a car salesman was at located on that big lot, they could pick up 5G anywhere or Wi-Fi. So it's just it's everywhere you look. And you showing that photo of them being under park benches and on stoplights and street lights, you just at this point you don't know where it's at. It's just everywhere.
Yeah, I do want to just address the fear factor, because what I've described is we've lived our whole lives in a soup of microwave radiation. And yes, it's increased dramatically, and we just haven't realized it. So it's not a new thing. I'm just making you aware of it. And I feel more confident than ever with more people being aware of this, that they're going to say no, because right now they're kind of ambivalent or they feel like they can't do anything. And what we're looking at here with Rose and Deborah and the other people that have been writing these documents and getting results, this is going to change the dynamics. We did everything we could till now with our local city council and mayor, and including writing our own ordinance with the top experts in the country, and we couldn't even get a meeting with them to discuss it. Think about that. Okay, frustration. We wanted solutions, and we got people together, and all we got was stonewalled. So now, with what I've learned most recently, I think there's a path here that's going to work. And just already, the number of people signing these documents is very encouraging, because we've never had this kind of participation.
That's good. That's good. Well, I don't see anybody else in the waiting room calling in. So would you guys like to maybe do a little bit of rapid fire out of the chat? And we can try to answer as many questions as we possibly can, as quick as we can. If you guys want to start dropping your questions there in chat, go ahead, and I'll grab them as quick as I can. One of the questions earlier, Russ, was can this penetrate metal buildings? And I guess we could take it a step further, and can it penetrate concrete buildings?
So metal will tend to be a reflector. So it's going to bounce off. It depends on the thick, as long as it's thick relative to the wavelength. So millimeters to centimeters thick, it's going to serve as a reflector in general. Of course, if you got a Faraday cage, you won't get really any type of microwave energy through that. But most buildings are more concrete. They're not just solid metal. So microwaves will go through concrete. That's really not going to stop the microwaves. What stops microwaves is water, biological tissue, or trees, humidity in the air. If you have very dry air, these small towers can go very, very long distance. It's only the humidity that's going to be attenuating. So concrete absolutely can go through concrete.
Okay. That's a question for you there, Rosemary.
Sorry, we don't have any affidavit mamas in Canada, but we do have people that are extremely close: Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, Maine. So if you need help, you can always contact us, and we will definitely see what we can do to help you.
Here's a question from Patriot Poodle. How far back need to stand from a microwave oven when heating stuff?
So microwave ovens have pretty high standards. So generally you're okay, but if it's an old microwave and the seals start to leak, then it becomes more of an issue. But generally you don't want to put your face right next to it. But of all the things that we're exposed to, your microwave oven is probably the least concerning. However, I can tell you that I've rarely cooked food in a microwave the last 4 or 5 years, because it does change the chemical composition. Some of you may have seen the high school experiment where the student microwaves and boils water, and then just regularly boils water and then gives that to a plant and then looks at how the plant grows. The water changes its properties from that. So that's just my personal opinion. However, my mom still uses microwaves, so it's not like you have to change. But that would be my answer to the question.
Okay. Here's one. I don't really understand the question, but I'll say it anyway. What about underground? I don't know if they're questioning if that can get underground or what.
Well, most of the things that we're using are above ground. So,
But what I think they might be saying, Russ, is if, like there's some buildings that, well, I mean, so there are some places, let's just say in the basement, as opposed to upstairs. That's below ground as a rule. Would it be more likely to go through a building into the basement as opposed to upstairs?
maybe the Earth is a great conductor. So from that standpoint, in fact, I think there's other wireless technologies. If you look at Nikola Tesla, the great inventor that delivered a lot of the things that we have today, he built wireless systems that went through the Earth. But otherwise, I don't think there's necessarily a distinction here without having more detail.
Okay.
There's the next question from our brother John E. for you there, Russ.
Could the nanoparticles in the vacation, increase the effect of 5G on the brain? They're using vacation for the
right. Yeah, vaccine. So, of course, we have to know what the actual ingredients are before I could really comment on that. But let's just talk in general. Metals, nanoparticles. Many of us have metal toxicity from aluminum, barium, lead in our water and in the air, and that accumulates in our body. And microwaves will be, well, those metal particles will enhance the electric fields in your tissue. That will make you more sensitive to the microwaves. So the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, they recognize a diagnosis of electrosensitivity or electrohypersensitivity. That's actually a diagnosis of up to 30% of the population, according to the WHO, who also recognizes that. That may be one of the factors why some people are extra sensitive. But remember, all of us are sensitive to this radiation. You can take measurements in your body and see effects. Many of us, though, can compensate. Maybe we have a good diet. Maybe there's other ways that we compensate, which actually can help you. That might be why some of us are less sensitive than other people, because we have compensation.
Don't dribble, all right? Just stand there, wait for.
In terms of the vaccine, we would have to know. I know people have talked about graphene oxide and other things like that. But there's lots of papers out there. I don't need to speculate on that. Graphene oxide is very toxic, and it will react to electromagnetic fields. So those are kind of things you don't want in your body, but we don't know exactly what's in each injection. That's not publicly available, so we can just speculate on that side of things.
Right.
Okay. We got another caller here. This is Rogue from Kansas. How you doing tonight, Rogue?
Oh, pretty good. Trying something new here with my computer. First time out with it. I tried it last night and it worked. And this is for Russ. Okay, they've been launching these suborbital satellites up here and things on a regular basis for over a year, and it's still in the testing stages. Is it linked to the cellular systems that are already deployed here to work in conjunction with those, with this 5G and stuff? Because I know I suffer from tinnitus, and what I've got running here at the house is I'm in a sea of EMF radio waves and stuff, and also a ham radio operator, so I understand quite a bit on how it could affect people. But I was just wondering about the satellites that are going into orbit around here to cover the whole Earth and things, if that's going to add to the symptoms and lack of better words, allergic reactions to people that are very sensitive, like a couple of our family members here on these chats and stuff. Well, I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts were on those.
So in general, I know a lot of people are talking about the space thing and all the satellites out there, but it's much more difficult to deliver power from space. Okay, so you can communicate with all these antennas, and I'm sure that's been going on for decades and decades and decades. Okay, and that very well could be part of the 5G Internet of Things when everything gets connected. But they tend to be low power devices, so they communicate with the towers that are on the ground, which are really delivering the kilowatts. The high exposure levels we're seeing are coming from the things on the ground. That's why we want to focus on the things being put up next to our homes and less so in space. You know, the laws in space are a little bit less clear. What's going up in space is a lot less clear. You got military, classified, industry. I think there should be transparency. We should know what's going up and how it's being used. But that really gets into a whole other area, which I actually think is secondary to where our responsibility is, and that's controlling the stuff on the ground right now.
Okay, and also I have seen schematics and circuit boards and stuff with, I watch a lot of videos here, and the LED street lamps and stuff, they have taken them apart, and it specifically shows a 5G chip in those street lights. I know part of it is for remote control from a central control center to turn them on and off and everything. And also I've had, experts or people in the deal say these are helping, for autonomous vehicles and stuff, by bouncing into street lamps and then going into the tower, or what one person called was the refrigerator type thing that's on the poles and stuff. But with the street lights, I imagine they could put a chip in each one of those circuit boards and stuff for beaming and stuff to track one car or one truck, whatever, and things. But to my understanding, during the street lights also not just the boxes that are on street lamps or telephone poles and stuff like that. Is that true?
Yeah, again, it's what are we being sold, and then what is it really being used for? So, I've heard things about self-driving cars, and we need all those. And these have been being rolled out across the world in these headlight and these street lights, and people have taken them apart and found monopole antennas and things like that. The question is, what are they really being used for? Who's monitoring their exposures, and who has a seat at the table of how they're being used? That's fundamental to really what's going on. We can't just keep speculating. Yes, they exist. Yes, I would be wary of them being on our, it's not, any one of these are relatively small little antennas, but when you create arrays across streets and you got many of them, and if you can be controlled remotely, you can do all kinds of weird things with them. I'm not saying that's part of the plan, but this goes back to having oversight and transparency. That's ultimately the thing. But yes, these street lights, many of them, if not most of them, now have some sort of antenna in them. That's their, again, when I say Internet of Things, I mean everything being connected. You're just seeing what's being put out there now in our faces. In terms of the lights themselves, there are blue lights and things like that, which are also have been well published to be harmful. So it depends on the lights themselves that we have to be a little careful with. Some of those that are not very bright, you can't see anything. People have said that those are not good for traffic and things like that. So there's a lot of different things that you and I, as being part of We the People, should be asking and getting answers to. And again, making sure we have a seat at the table so we know exactly what's going on.
Okay, and one last thing here, if I can remember it, is are they mostly deploying this technology, the 5G and stuff, in metroplexes, or is it all over? Like, I live in a town of about 2,000 to 3,000 people and things, and I've seen one tower here in town is all I have seen. Now, of course, I haven't looked very hard either. But are most of them going up in, like New York, Boston, Los Angeles, Sacramento, et cetera, Is that where most of this is being deployed to start with?
Well, I think we're beyond starting with. It's been going on for a few years now, but yeah, I mean, all major cities across the country has some sort of presence here. Some are happening faster than others. There's been a little bit resistance here. There are state bills that have fast-tracked things, rolling things out. So absolutely, we're seeing them in the metropolitan areas. And like I said, in some cases, every 300 feet in some areas. When you get to the agriculture and forest, there's technologies to monitor every tree in the forest. I think Microsoft has a contract to do that, right? They say it's good for the health. They need to know. Be able to monitor energy, right? Carbon dioxide. All of this is ultimately being tracked. It seems like the goal is to get as many people as they can to the cities, where it's easier to monitor and control people, and then less so in the farm areas and agriculture where you have less people. But in the end, there's been a lot of push recently to get 5G and this wireless technology into the rural areas, which I think tends to be more resistant also. So it's all of the above. With so much money being poured into it, it's really unstoppable unless people decide that they've had enough of this and they need to have some say in what's going on.
What you need to think of is like the trucker convoy. We need people convoy to put a stop to this. We need to put our foot down and say, no, this is not going to happen.
Okay.
All right. We got a lot of questions in the chat there, Rob. We got to get back to it. Appreciate you calling in.
Okay, go ahead. And I love you guys. God bless. Very interesting topic. And being a radio guy, it's very, very fascinating to me. So I'll say God bless. Good night. And we'll be monitoring and everything. And you guys have a good evening and take care. And
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. A couple of questions real quick, folks. How about dental work? Is that affected at all by 5G?
Well, if you have metal in your teeth, you may get some sensitivity. That's the only thing I can think of. But your dental health overall is very important, and the electrical communication of your teeth with other parts of your body is an interesting topic by itself. But other than the metal being in there, I don't know anything specific. But yes, you do have an electrical system through your teeth, which is interesting by itself, but I don't know much more beyond that I can comment on.
Okay, here's another question. How would you suggest we best create a sanctuary in our homes away from the radiation? I already have my home hardwired. Is there a Faraday cage system or other protection that you can recommend?
Well, I don't know if I'd recommend anything, but I can tell you what other people have tried. There are leaded paints or conductive paints that can dramatically lower the exposure in your home, especially if you've got a tower very close to your window or something. So I know some people here that have done that. That can be a little bit tricky. So there are people called experts called building biologists. You can look them up. They're the ones that specialize in coming to your home and looking for solutions. Microwave radiation is one part of it. I did not talk about something called dirty electricity, which is also fairly common, and that has to do with your power lines and your 60 hertz. Sometimes a lot of people have things riding on their power lines, which actually also have been shown to be not good for your health, and there are solutions for that. In general, if you have a complete Faraday cage, there's been quite a few studies to show that that's not a good idea, because the Earth's magnetic field, what's called the Schumann resonance of the Earth, which is roughly 8 hertz, you don't necessarily want to shield that, because it actually can be beneficial for your health. So you got to be a little bit careful completely shielding your home. There are also things like for your bed when you're sleeping, because you might be sleeping 8 hours and you want to have peace of mind. There are things that people sell that are called canopies that can drape over your bed, which are kind of conductive fabrics. I've seen that as low as $150 online. And you can drape that over and ground it, and that can also reduce your exposure. If you're going to be doing that, talk to an expert, or also maybe get one of these meters like this one. There are many different kinds. These cost about $150, and then you can directly measure the exposures with anything you do. But I also kind of recommend having an expert if you're going to get serious and doing something like that.
Okay. Here's another really good question, and this one, like I said, somebody who's very close to me has this problem right now, and it's the ringing in the ears. Is there any connection?
I believe absolutely, and there's lots of papers on this. So we've heard tinnitus or tinnitus, it's pronounced both ways.
Yes.
Is a dramatically increasing symptom that people have been feeling for the last 20 years. And I already talked about how microwaves directly can create sounds. This has been known within exposures, maybe even of your cell phone. Okay, so the microwaves themselves can create that kind of sound. However, if you're exposed to that for a long time, then it can become possibly a chronic condition where even when you're not exposed to it, it just your brain and your body, your cells get entrained to these pulses, and it starts to follow even when you're not exposed to it. So there are papers out there that describe this, that suggest this association. So again, peer reviewed, that's always a good starting point. Given what we know that microwaves can do, what's been published, I believe I hear things like in the morning when it's quiet with all these towers. It just would not surprise me that we all might be in our background level being able to pick things up. When it becomes a chronic condition and we're extra sensitive to me, that is tinnitus or tinnitus. Does that mean there could be other causes? Of course. But we can't rule out the microwave effect, and we need to get more scientists looking into this and looking at ways to possibly treat it. But if we're not even thinking about the effects of microwaves, and like I said, I'm here at the university, and I have very few colleagues that are even looking into the connection between Alzheimer's and microwaves, right? They would look at me like, what are you talking about? And right above me here in this building on the floor, there's a whole floor dedicated to Alzheimer's research. So this is, so we have to break these boundaries, especially at the academic institutions. So we start looking at causal factors, because causal factors is not something we typically look at when we apply for a grant or get research funding. In fact, you have a low chance of getting funded if you say, I want to look at the effects of microwaves to see if that's causing Alzheimer's. The reviewers would, for multiple reasons, would probably not fund you. So we do have to change the perception here. So we can do the kind of research that you're talking about. But based on what we know today, looking backwards, of course, microwaves is playing a role in this problem.
Okay. Last question for the night, and then we're gonna roll into final thought. I'll go final thought to Rosemary first, and then Deborah, and then I'll let you wrap it up there, Russ. But the final question for tonight is there much harm in Bluetooth cell phone headsets? I keep one on almost all the time.
I would say absolutely. The Bluetooth, the AirPods, this is 2.4 gigahertz microwave radiation right up against your body. Okay, so let me just put this in perspective. And again, the AirPods creates a dipole on either side and right in your brain. And there's videos and experts that have talked about this. But let's just look at the devices. We can go to the manuals, the manual the manual of your phone, the manual of your laptop. Okay, we're just going to look at those two because those are pretty common. In your phone, let's just say iPhone, depends on your model. It says in the manual, you can find it. You got to go in through all the menus. It's really small. It'll say your phone is supposed to be away from your body at least a certain distance all the time. So the older iPhones, it was 10, 15 millimeters. I think now it might be 5 millimeters. That means even holding it or I'm talking about it's right there. It can exceed its guidelines if you are in contact with your body. The old Androids was 25 millimeters. Okay, that's how far you're supposed to keep the old Androids away. Okay, how about the laptop? When you buy a laptop, if you go into the manual, it's exposure guidelines. It says 20 centimeters away from your body at all time, and it's called a laptop.
Oh, I'm screwed.
Okay. Now, on the other hand, I'm making you aware of something. I would violate that as well. But now you start to think about it and you start to just have good habits, you might start to feel better. Okay. I think that's the point. So we are still on our voluntary devices. That's where we have the most control. But I'm not here just to educate people on that. I'm here to tell people it's the involuntary crap of 5G where we have to draw the line where we will no longer have a choice. So I'm coming in right here, setting the stage and giving us good etiquette because, hey, we can start feeling better just by doing a few tips. Don't sleep with your phone under your pillow or even close to you. Your head is there for a few hours. You don't want that. You don't want to have the Wi-Fi router in your room. So that's all part of the tips. Even if you're not wired, at least turn it off at night. I know lots of people that just have a little switch or they turn it off at night or they automatically do it. They sleep much better with it off. All these things will start to have a dramatic effect on a lot of people's health, okay? In my opinion.
I'll stay back here, guys. All right.
By the way, when it comes to the headphones and what I recommend, you can use the earbuds with a wire connection, but even the wire is technically becomes an antenna if you're exposed to the field, so it starts radiating. It's of course it's way better than using Bluetooth, but there are also something called air tubes. I think it's called air tubes, which don't have the wire and it has very good quality. I use that. You can just look up air tubes, and that to me is probably the safest. And I know a lot of people that use that. So there are very good solutions once you know about it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, a lot to think about. We'll roll into final thoughts, and then we'll get out of here for the night. I'm gonna have to go pick Noah up here shortly. So, Rosemary, would you like to go first?
Well, I just want to say thank you to Russ for bringing this to us because without that, we would not know the things that we know now. And I know that there's probably tons more that we need to be made aware of. But I really do want to thank you for everything you've tried to do in the past and then coming to us to see if we could help you and everybody else get this maybe under some control. We have no idea if it will ever get it to where it's completely safe unless we just totally eliminate it altogether. But um and I want to thank Mike for allowing us to come on here and have these opportunities to bring this stuff to everybody. We hope that it was helpful because that's all we want to do is to bring this to you so that you can know what's happening and have more information so that you can go forward and see what you can do as well in order to make yourself safe.
Yeah.
Amen. And you guys, before you leave, if you can hit that like button for me, I'd appreciate it. Share this out. If you guys can share just this one video out to as many people as you possibly can, put it on your Facebook, wherever you got to put it on social media to get this information out. I would truly appreciate it. I'm sure these fine folks would as well. Deborah, your final thought?
Yes. Rosemary, quick question. Did we share the link for the jot form with them?
I will have to do it after we get off so that they
Okay.
can attach it.
All right. Because we have the first notice going to the Tucson City Council and the mayor. We presently have it ready so that if you get the jot form link, you can go ahead and digitally sign that so that you're participating. It does not matter where you are in the United States or even in Canada, you can sign it. And so please do that so that it's getting out there, and we want them to get thousands of these emails with these signed documents. We're going to try and get hundreds of them delivered to them in paper form, but we really, really want this to make a difference.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much for that, Deborah. Rosemary, did you or Russ, did you want me to grab this link that you put in private chat and put it in the big chat?
Yeah, if Rosa and Deborah verify that's the one that I had. So if that looks right.
I'm sure it's the right one then. Yes.
Okay.
And think of it as a template. Obviously, anybody that signs that will be helping Tucson and the people here. But this is a template that we expect to go first to other Arizona cities. People are already working on it. And then to other states, based on their state constitution, there'll be some changes. But this is a very important document because it focuses on your state constitution. And it's going to push people to act in a way that maybe we haven't seen before.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, your turn there, Russ, for the final thoughts. I was trying to read what John E. had put up there. I have a feeling that we'll have a show on Podbean in the very near future, so expect Denise to reach out to you. I'm sure John E. would like to have a crack at this too on Podbean. He's one of my co-hosts, and we love Podbean because we can talk freely. We don't have to talk in code about vacations or any of that nonsense. So it was a pleasure meeting you, Russ, and I can't wait to have you back on either Podbean or here. Doesn't matter for me. So if you got a presentation, it's best to do it here on YouTube. If you just want to talk, it's best to do it over on Podbean.
Yeah, and I challenge anybody to bring other point of view perspective. This topic is so overwhelming to me. It just hasn't happened. The key is you got to have the background to be able to talk about the facts and evidence. And that's just not so commonplace now. And I doubt very few people are going to take a contrary position or even a middle position on this. But that's why we have to demand the platform and give everyone the opportunity to get out there. If there are two sides, show the two sides to this. And I welcome that. I want to have that. Okay. So just closing thoughts. I mean, this is about just also having good habits of our own personal, at home, because like I said, most of us are still getting the exposures at home. And I'm glad if people learn something and they might change their behaviors a little bit because they might feel better than they did yesterday or last week, realizing that these things might be contributing to that. But I'm also here because of the much bigger problem about the privacy thing and about how this fuel, this energy, this microwave radiation is what is going to create this lockdown grid if we're not careful, that are going to take away all our rights ultimately if we're not careful. And so that's where it all connects to everything else. And we have to put our foot down. We need to understand it, how it works. And then we need to figure out how to get our seat at the table. And as far as I know, it starts at our local community with our local elected representatives. And what we see in Tucson is not unique. We see it in pretty much every city in Arizona, and I'm going to guess across the country. The city attorneys also are misleading the local city councils and what their oath of office is, not even referring to the oath. So even though this is about 5G and microwave radiation, this connects, to my opinion, to everything else, and that's why we all have to put this at a very high level and get up to speed. And what I hope I've been able to do is provide material where people can go back without degrees or letters after their name and start to understand the basic principal concepts. That's all they need to know. And then I would have done my job, because now they can go and share this with other people and have those conversations. So I'm going to end with that.
All right. Well, looks like I dropped the link again. It looks like a few people have already signed, so that's amazing. We're getting the help. You guys share that out. Share this video out. Let's get as many people to sign it as we possibly can, because I just think it's important that we all stand together when it comes to this. So here's my final thought for tonight. A little bit of comedy. This conversation really makes me want to become Grizzly Adams / Jeremiah Johnson and just live on a mountaintop with a grizzly bear, because this stuff's pretty crazy, to be honest with you. And my second thought is, well, I guess that might just be my first thought. Well, I guess my second thought is this. I may go back to, because I used to use this for an excuse all the time. I have an iPhone. I don't know. It's 11, 12, 13, 24. I don't know what it is. I can't remember. But I've seen other videos, Russ, where people have taken that device that you had and showed what kind of radiation their cell phone was putting off next to the bed. And so friends of mine actually in California said, okay, we're not putting that next to the bed anymore. And they actually moved it into their office. Now, I put mine down for a while, and then I started putting it next to the bed again because my excuse was, well, in case something happens to one of my kids or my parents or my brothers or something, I want to make sure I don't miss the call. So after having this conversation, it may be wise of me to get a landline again and have one of those corded phones next to the bed so I don't miss the call, but so I'm not killing myself at the same time. So I don't know. It's pretty amazing information, and I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, and when everything goes down, your landline will still work and your cell phone will not.
Well, it may not be a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So anyway, that what a great night. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you once again, the ladies here, the Affidavit Mamas, for bringing another wonderful guest. That's now part of the LWN family. Welcome, Russ. You're welcome back anytime. I can't wait till we have another conversation because I just think a lot of this stuff is not known, and it's something that we have to do.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to share this with your viewers.
Absolutely. All right, folks, it's the end of the night. Check us out, libertywarriornation.com. We have a link to Affidavit Mamas. So if you guys need more information, just go to the website there at libertywarriornation.com. You guys can link up with the Affidavit Mamas. We put all the links in chat tonight. So if you guys want to help sign that, all the information that Russ discussed tonight was in a PDF. I dropped that a couple times in chat, and I know the mods did as well. So thanks for supporting us tonight. Thanks for being here tonight. Thank you to all the super chats and the super stickers tonight and everything that you guys do to support this channel. Really appreciate it. And we will be back on tomorrow evening, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain Time, right here on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. And tomorrow morning, if you guys like devotions, we will be on at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for devotions. Love to see you all there. Have a great evening. Thank you much. God bless. Love you all.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Hoping for a sincere performance, but open to finding the moment, to finding out where I'm headed now. Looking for a sign of disaster, so I can make it there faster. I'm weighing the consequences out. I can see in all directions. It's all open to interpretation, but I see colors that are breaking from the other side, the other side. When I make mountains out of summer trails, when I buckle under all the details, I'll keep going till I make it to the other side, the other side. Can you tell me the secret of how you can take it or leave it? How you can blend in with the crowd? I'm so scared, so damn afraid to look. I'm so sick of talking. I'm wearing the words out, words out. I can see in all directions. It's all open to interpretation, but I see colors that are breaking from the on the